The spiritual principle that I'm working with today is simple, simple, simple. There is plenty of everything to go around. We live in a land of plenty. And I'm not just talking about money. There's enough love to go around. There's enough good men to go around. There's enough good women to go around. There's enough opportunity for advancement in your careers to go around. There's no limitation. Simply, we live in an abundant universe. Recently, somebody gave me a copy of a book that they thought that I would like and that would be helpful. And while I have a stack of books on my desk that I think would be helpful and I would love to read, for some reason I did pick this one up. It was written by a minister who's retired now, a Science of Mind minister, Dennis Merritt Jones. And, you know, I found it very helpful. The person who said they thought it would be helpful is right. It's called The Art of Abundance, the 10 Rules for a Prosperous Life. And what he does is to help us take a fresh look at what abundance is and the place that it has in our lives. Now, I want to kind of you to hear from his voice what he thinks this book is about, because I didn't want to just leave it to my take on it, although my take is very good on it, but... It is my sincere belief, he writes, that the world doesn't need yet another self-help guru or prosperity book outlining the greatest techniques on how to win the lottery, or how to go from rags to riches in 21 days, or how to manifest the right and perfect job, relationship, or parking space, or even how to heal one's various physical ailments. What the world needs is a new perspective regarding what gives meaning and value to life, to recognize that everyone strives essentially for the same thing, and it is not money or stuff on the material plane. It's something far less tangible and far more rewarding. Behind every thought, deed, and action of every human being of rational mind on this planet is the desire for freedom, inner peace, and a life worth living. A life that is filled with purpose and meaning, a life of fulfillment and wholeness. However, for the majority of the more than 7 billion beings who share this planet, the idea that this type of life exists is impossible to conceive. Instead, they hold the erroneous belief that money or material success alone will garner the life they desire. This collective belief has been the cause of untold suffering for millennia. If you sit with this idea for a moment, you may discover there is a place within you that the same belief resides. So a lot of what I do in ministry, I realize, is to take away beliefs, not to instill new beliefs in us, because at our essence, we already know. So it's to kind of remove some of the gunk that's covering up the spiritual truth in our lives. He goes on to say that the point is to understand that beyond everything you think, what you truly seek is quite basic. It's a life of wholeness, a life of peaceful satisfaction. Would you agree that that's really the great part of life? And here's the irony. Such a world already exists for those who have eyes to see it and faith to claim it. It's already here. So it's important for us to understand that the purpose of this series is not a limited view of prosperity. It's not how to make you rich. Although you can be rich from these 10 principles. It's really about a guide to creating a wholeness in every area of your life. So to get started, I want to tell you an ancient story by Swami Vivekananda. Once upon a time, there lived a school of fish in the shallow, warm waters of a blue lagoon that was kept safe by a giant coral reef. Every fish in the lagoon had been born there, and most of the fish in that lagoon are going to die there, remaining separated from the vast sea, fearing to venture out far beyond the safety of the reef because of the legend of the Blue Lagoon. The legend is simply a group of stories that have been passed down from one generation to the next, stories of those who call who answered the call to venture out into the great sea and experience more freedom, but never to return. This legend made leaving the lagoon safe and convenient, not a safe and convenient thing to do. It was difficult to do. But you know what? Like us when we were in our 18s and 20s, like our kids who were in their 18s and 20s, we wanted to try it anyway. We wanted to try and venture out. And so the young fish did also. To better prepare themselves, they devotedly attended school so they'd be ready when they graduated to decide whether to answer the mysterious call of freedom or whether to stay in the lagoon forever. Well, the day eventually came for their final exam. Being very wise, the head teacher, Master Majora, gave the fledgling class their assignment, saying this: "Young ones, your graduation test is twofold. First, you must discover the secret of life. Contained within that secret, you'll find a life of wholeness, a life of abundance, where you will learn that there is more than enough of everything you need, not just to survive, but to thrive. And not just for you, but for all the rest of the fish in the sea. And most importantly, if you find this secret, you can leave the lagoon anytime you want and as often as you want with joy and safety. However, I must warn you, the secret is hidden extraordinarily well. To assist you, I offer this ancient paradox in which the secret can be easily found. Here is the ancient paradox. What you are looking for, you are looking with. What you are looking for, you are looking with. Additionally, you will not find the secret within the confines of this lagoon. You've got to go out into the vast sea where you've never gone before. Now, little fish, go. Go and explore. And when you've received the secret of life, come back to me and share what you have found. Acting as one body, the fish swam eagerly, excitedly past the reef out into the vast ocean, not knowing what they were going to find. Almost immediately, however, they became afraid of being out so far. The legend of the lagoon began to surface in their little fish minds, and they began to remember the story of those who had tried to go out before, never to return. Finally, out of their collective fear of the unknown, they gave up, and again, acting as an entire body, they swam back into the safety of the warm blue lagoon, where they would live until they died. All except one, that is. Latifa was her name, and she continued on, looking for the secret, not giving any attention to the legend, not rehearsing those legend stories that had been with her. Well, back in the lagoon, the fish were sure that Latifa was dead because she didn't come back for quite some time. They thought that she had succumbed to the legend of the lagoon. But one day, Latifa swam back into the lagoon, and the other fish began to gather around her, and they noticed that she was more self-confident, that she was more at peace, that she looked even a little bit smarter than any fish they had seen. Master Majora asked her if she understood what the secret of life. Did she find it? And she said, yes. As I swam further into the infinite ocean, I continued to think of your paradox. In fact, it became a mantra for me. What you were looking for, you were looking with. What you were looking for, you were looking with. Then one day, while effortlessly swimming in this current of the vast ocean, contemplating the immensity and the beauty surrounding me, I realized how comfortable I felt, just as if I had been born in this current. It was then that I instantly knew the secret of life. It is my oneness with the ocean and with all of life. I'm imbued with it, and so is everyone else. It's all about freedom, and you cannot have freedom until you embrace the notion of oneness with life. Once we get there, there's no separation. We don't have to stay in our safety anymore because we're safe everywhere. We can go anywhere. Because now we know contained within this water, and for us I would say contained within this air, is everything we need, not just to sustain ourselves, but to thrive. Regretfully, the other fish swam off, away from her. Didn't want to be near her. They felt like she drank the Kool-Aid. Oh my God, she just bought it all. She doesn't know that if she goes back out there, she's going to die again. Well, which do we want to be? Do we want to be Latifah, who goes out and embraces life and finds new ways of exploring and being free and feeling safe everywhere we go, in every room, in every office building, in every interview? Do we want to be that free that we just can go wherever we want? Or do we want to be like the fish who are just swimming in the rivers of sameness? The parable isn't just a story about a school of fish trying to break free of the confines of limited life and too often failing. It's actually our story too. Like the majority of the fish swimming in the lagoon, many of us spend a good portion of our life swimming in the circles of sameness, in the shallows of life, afraid to venture out, afraid what would happen to us, in the grips of the legends of our families, of our tribes, of our political parties. The Great Barrier Reef is a metaphor for our consciousness, which comprises everything we've thought since the beginning of time. Those things that we're aware we thought, and those things that have slipped by our aware mind and landed in our subconscious. The Great Barrier Reef is a metaphor for that consciousness. Some of us have been stuck in our history, in our parents' history, in our grandparents' history, in our tribe's history, because we've believed the legends and they've been passed down from generation. The book itself is the 10 rules for prosperous life, a life of wholeness. So I want to address for a moment what we religious science, our general distaste for the idea of rules. We don't care for rules. We don't like them. We think they're confining. Most of us in this room, including me, have rejected rules all of our lives. We've rejected rules of how we should dress for our gender. We've rejected rules about what music members of our tribe should like or not like. We've rejected rules about working 60 hours a week to be successful. And some of us have embraced all of those rules and so many more. The nanosecond somebody suggests that I follow the rules of some sane eating plan, I put 10 pounds on my hips right in that moment, because you're not going to tell me. No rules for me. So now we can do two things as we progress in this series. We can change the word rules to practices so we feel more comfortable with it, and we could listen to what Joan says about rules. The thinking mind hungers for details. It's always looking for rules to follow, steps to take, and a logical linear process on which to arrive at our goals, the how-tos of getting where we want to be. So for the next 3 weeks, I'm going to tackle these rules for a prosperous life. Now, I could say, take what you like and leave the rest, but I don't need to say that because you're going to do that anyway. But what I do want to say is this: approach it with an open mind and an open heart. Just say, is this possibly something that could help me live a more prosperous life, a life of better wholeness in my life? Jones breaks the teaching down into rules, the rules of abundance down into 5 components. The 5 components of each rule is this: the premise. What is this rule based on? The problem, why don't people easily and effortlessly follow this rule? It makes so much sense. What is the rejection that folks have of this rule? The principle, the practice, and the payoff. Now, unfortunately, I've been talking so long setting up this series, but I wanted you to hear that parable because that parable will be the foundation for all of the 10 rules that we're going to look at. And I wanted to take a few minutes to just introduce it. Unfortunately, I've talked so long that now I'm only going to get to a portion of Rule 1. I'm going to get to the premise, and I'm going to get to the problem. And then we'll pick it back up next week and do a lot of rules next week. But today we're just going to start with the first one. The first one is this: be one with all life. That's the premise. The premise is, as our awareness of our oneness with the universe deepens, wherever you look, you will find prosperity. You will find abundance. It's one thing to say with our spiritually pursed lips, and I hear this a lot, oh, we live in an unlimited universe, but people haven't actualized it. They're feeling poor. They're feeling stressed. They're feeling anxious because they don't have enough money to live on. It's one thing to spout it. It's another thing to experience it. And the whole purpose of this church is for you and I to learn the ways to experience God's bounty in every way, whether it's money or love or connection or whatever it is in our life. The problem is that we think we have to struggle to survive. Not enoughism has permeated the psyche of this society. And I think of all of humanity, to tell you the truth. And the idea is that there's not enough to go around is a lie. So let me just say it again so we're clear. The idea that there's not enough to go around is a bold-faced lie. Yeah. Frankly, it's a lie that's killing people and it's keeping other people in oppressed living conditions. The fear of not having enough has been handed down after generation after generation. Fear of not enough money, not enough food, not enough respect, not enough time, not enough love, not enough power, not enough land in our life. And that fear is what drives separation of any kind. That fear is what drives separation. The fear that people of color might thrive is what drives the Proud Boys. Fear that immigrants might use up precious jobs or medical resources that are taken from white people is what drives anti-immigration sentiments in our life. Fear that women might make the same amount of men doing the same job is what drives employers sometimes to have unequal compensation packages. Fear produces duality. And duality is what's making us sick. So I'm just going to say that again because it's probably the most important thing I'm going to say all month. Fear produces duality. And duality is making us sick as a country and as individuals. This fear is the root cause of every war. It's the motivating force behind all selfishness, greed, corruption, and dishonesty. All fear comes from the belief in death in one form or another. All fear. All fear comes from a belief in death in one form or another. The loss of someone or something. It could be our own physical death we fear, or it could as easily be the death of our bank account, our lifestyle, our relationship, our health, our reputation. Want to get rid of the fear and of not enoughism, because I do. I want to get rid of that fear that I'm not enough in certain areas of my life. I want it just gone. I think these rules of prosperity are going to help me get rid of it. Begin this week to be conscious of places you feel separation from the universe. Where do you have that fight or flight? Where might you turn that into a feeling of embrace of situation? Next week, I'm going to finish rule number 1, I promise. And I'm going to add a couple of more rules, and we'll go through the problem, the premise, the practice, the payoff. Because I think at the end of this series, all of us are going to be able to up-level our life, up-level our peace, level up our enjoyment, and yeah, up-level our material life as well. Let's take this message into prayer. There's only one power. It's the power of this great universe, the power of love. And it flows through me. When I get my bloated nothingness out of the way of this power, I help myself. I help others. I'm in the flow of life. I stop swimming upstream and just allow the flow of life to take me. I give thanks for this. I release this word into the law, and together we say, and so it is.